privilege to be here today in the house of the Lord. Again, are you happy to be here?
Amen.
We'll go all times. All right. This is the beginning of the month of February, the first Sunday in the month of February. And this is the month that was given to us. Amen. Yeah. European give us this month and say you can celebrate your history. Amen. So we don't want to wait until February month come around to talk about Black history. Right. And it is something that we should have in our mind, have in our memory. We should know our history. And it's a very important thing when you know your history. And not knowing your history is like somebody, for instance, let me use myself. I'm 62. Let us suppose somebody have the power to erase all of my memory. All of my memories, that's 62 years of memories. They erase it. And then they said, I want you to start over. Start over and, you go on with your life. And then suddenly they come and they start telling me, well, I'm going to tell you, what you used to do before you lost your memory. You used to be over in Africa. And you used to be on trees, swinging from trees, like monkeys. And all of this kind of, information they try to feed you with. But if you know your history and you know where you came from and know who is your ancestors, your memory is not erased. Right. Nobody will be able to come and to tell you about what is going on in your life. When somebody come and speak up on you and say, well, when you was over in Africa, you was on trees. And you have to thank God that the white man brought you over here. And, slavery was a blessing to the black people. You could say, man, listen, when we was in Africa, we have great civilization that was going on over there. We have empires. Mm-hmm. We have people who were kings and queens. We have libraries. As I was saying this morning, in Egypt, they have the library in Alexandria, and that library have more than 1 million books in it. We have the library in Timbuktu, have so much books in it. And a lot of these places, we have people from Europe used to come down into Africa and, study and get their education. And as I was saying to you, half of history was already accomplished, half of history was already gone, before people in Europe learn to read and write. And, we don't know it, so it doesn't make a big deal to us. And I think it is very important for us as people of God and as black people to know something about our history. So I'm going to do a little study here. I'm going to talk today. And I'm going to talk about the suffering the strength in suffering of black women. Strength in suffering of black women. And I know some of you guys out there must be saying, well, Pastor, I'm glad you're going to talk about the suffering of black women. You know how long I'm suffering under my husband, You know how long I'm suffering under my husband, and I'm just waiting for somebody to talk about the suffering of black women. We're not talking about that kind of suffering. What you're experiencing in your relationship, that is nothing. It is nothing in comparison to the suffering that black women throughout history experience. And as I start, I want to let you know that the black man and the black woman, whether people want to acknowledge it, yes or no, they are the father and the mothers of all of humanity. Right. But when you check in history, you will see that no other race of people suffer as much as the black man and the black woman. And I'm not going to focus on the black man today. I'm going to talk about the suffering, strength in suffering of the black woman. And if you say somebody suffer, you have to find out who they suffer under whose hands did they suffer. Right. And when you look into history, you will see for more than 1,300 years, black people, black women have been suffering under the hands of Europeans. And somebody will say, well, you shouldn't talk these things because it made people feel uncomfortable. But when you look into the historical records, you will see that black women, black people, we didn't start out suffering. Our history is not a history of suffering from the beginning. Because when you go back into Africa, you will see that people in Africa, before Europeans came in and kidnapped our ancestors, take them to different places, some of them were tribal leaders, some of them were kings, we have queens, we have communities of people in Africa, we have, everybody belongs to their tribe. We today, over in North America here, down in the Caribbean, we don't even know what tribe we're from. I'm a Mandingo. I'm from the Mandingo tribe. I'm taking that tribe for my own. Okay. And when you look at the history and the suffering of black people, black women, black men, you have to go back to the 7th century. It was about 1,300 years ago when the Arabs and the Portuguese, they go into Africa and they start kidnapping black people, buying some of them, kidnapping and buying, and they're taking them to places like India. That is about 1,300 years ago. You might be surprised if you go and do some research, you will see how many thousands upon thousands of African people living in India for a long period of time. They have maybe close to 100 different villages of people who live in India. African people looking just like me and you, who are taken there by the Arabs and the Portuguese from the 7th century. That is about maybe 1,300 years ago. And also they take these people, and this is way before the Atlantic slave trade. They took these people into Iraq. You have lots of black African people living in Iraq, living there because the Portuguese and these Arab people took them there as slaves. And even in Iraq right now, they have them as second-class citizens, treating them like nothing. Going back to those who are living in India, if you do some reading, you will see it have the caste system in India, where they have this type of Indian people, the dark-skinned Indian people in India. They have them as nothing. They have to do the worst kind of job. They treat them like nothing in comparison to the other people in India. And when you check for the black people who are living in India, they are worse. They are below the second-class caste system people that they have in India. They are way below them. So they took them into places like India, into places like Iraq, Iran. Lots of people was taken to Iran, Turkey, a lot of these European countries. That is way back in the 7th century, start receiving people from out of Africa. So if you have to talk about the suffering of black women, that is where I would say the suffering of black women started from. Because we have to understand, when you take somebody as a slave, especially a woman, one of the things that they do to women when they take them into slavery is that these men, they're going to be raping them. They're going to be taking sexual advantage on these women. So that happened from way back in the 7th century. And when we talk about in our time, and we talk about when the Atlantic slave trade started, and I think that probably started in the 14th century, when these same Portuguese again. Portugal is a small little place, small little kind of a island or whatever. And because they have the backing of the Roman Catholic Pope, France and Spain, Spain and Portugal, the Catholic Pope gave them the blessing to go and colonize and enslave people. So it was the Portuguese, they started going down into Africa, because when you look at the map, you see that Portugal is here, and then Africa is just on this side. So these European Portuguese when, they're coming down into Africa and they're kidnapping black people and they're taking them to all different places of the world. So what I'm saying is that when they started the slave trade to come to this part of the world, which they call the New World, they will use Arabs again, black people in Africa. Because the Europeans, they wasn't going out into the community, into the villages and rounding up slaves, catching slaves back for themselves. They use the Arabs. They use the Arabs to kidnap their own brothers and sisters. And I tell you something, when you look at the Europeans, some of the wickedness that they portrayed on other people, if they can't do it themselves, they're going to find other people to do it and they're going to pay them to do it. And what they were doing, they were paying these Arab brothers and sisters of other people in Africa, paying them. And what they will do, they will catch these men, women, and children, and they will take them to where the ship will be waiting. Because sometimes they have to travel for weeks. They'll be traveling for weeks before they can get to where the ship is docked. And then they will have to wait for another long period of time before the ship have the amount of people that they're waiting for. Because some of these ships can take up to 500 people. And when you look on these ships and see the way how they stockpile these men and women, because they didn't really count them as human beings then. They were worse than animals. And in the ship itself, it was just about 5 feet in height. 5 feet in height. And you know us black people, some people are 5, 6 feet tall. So you in a ship with a height of 5 feet, and then you're not even standing. What they're doing, they will take about 450, 500 people, and they put them into these ships and put them lie down, pack them like you're packing sardines, and shackle them. And you got to do all of your business. You got to urine, you got to defecate, you got to do everything in that little confined space. And then you got to wait there for a long period of time. But as I talk about the suffering, the strength in suffering of black women during the period of time that they are waiting to get the ship filled with slaves, because they're not going to leave Africa to go down to places like Jamaica, because sometimes from Africa to Jamaica, that journey is about 8 weeks. They're not going to leave with an empty boat. They want a full load of slaves. So by the time they're waiting to get a full load, what do you think happened to these women? These men having sexual relationship with these women because they bought them. They come like property. So whatever they choose to do to them, they have the right to do it. And while they're waiting to get the ship filled up with people, they will be sexually abusing these women. And then they will get the ship filled up, and they, took out, they leave on their journey. Whether it's 8 weeks journey, they're on the high seas, going from Africa to whatever port they will be going to. What is going to happen to these women? These men taking advantage of them, they're raping them. And sometimes some of these ladies, they don't want to get raped by these men. When they get a chance, what they will do, they will throw themselves overboard. Throw themselves overboard. So what used to happen, because so many people used to jump overboard, and it had all of these sharks and all of these, sea creatures, sea monsters, if you want to call them that. They're following the ship. And the ship journey from Africa to go to whatever destination they're going to. These sea monsters, they know that people will be thrown overboard or people will jump overboard. So they're just waiting to get food. So as we get into it, for black men and women, slavery was an equally devastating experience. Both were torn from homeland and family. You know, sometimes when we talk about slavery, people say, oh, you know, it happened a long time ago. So what are you talking about? It's a good thing for black people. You know, there's some as if, well, where we came from, our ancestors, we didn't have no family. You know, they just came over, we were just over there, as I said this morning, we were just over there like monkeys swinging from trees, and they came over and they helped us out. And one historian was saying, and that's the reason why I was saying this morning, we can't believe everything that we see in these historical books. One historian was saying that when you look at slavery, that the plantation was the classroom. The plantation was the classroom for the black people. And the student, which is the black people, they were let out too early. And what he's saying is that slavery came to an end too quick. So when we look at some of these books, we have to be careful what we are taking out of them. So people in Africa, they were living families. They have families, they have communities, they have leaders, and everybody was living happy in Africa. Look at even our brothers and sisters from Africa right now. And sometimes you hear people will say, well, we came over here, and they will say, well, you come over here and you get education and you get this and whatever. But look at our brothers and sisters who wasn't kidnapped and they stay in Africa. You see how educated Africans are? They saw as if, well, Africans is so backward and they don't have anything. And as I said to you before, in Africa, Africa is where the first university was set up. In Egypt and in Timbuktu. So it wasn't a favor that they showed to us by bringing us over here. Amen. So because skilled labors such as carpentry and blacksmithing was assigned only to male slaves, the pool of black men available for agricultural work was further reduced. As a result, female slaves eventually outnumber men in the field. So what this is telling us, a lot of these men, they were skillful. They were carpenters, blacksmiths. A lot of these men were bricklayers. So what the slave masters used to do when they brought our ancestors over here to America, to the Caribbean, down into Central America, down into South America, all of these places, Haiti, Barbados, Jamaica, all of the Caribbean islands. What they were doing, they will take these skillful men and they will hire them out into the community. Somebody building a house, what they will do, they will hire these skillful men and they will have them as carpenters and they will be doing the work. So when they take all of the men from the plantation to do work in the community, to build houses and whatever they need to do, skillful things, all of the work in the plantation fall back on the women. So most of the plantation work was done by the women. And we are talking about the suffering of black women. And when you're working in the field, you have the hoe. Anybody ever see a hoe? You have a hoe and you have to plow. And you have to take the fork, you have to do some plowing. Then when the time comes, you have to cultivate, you have to clean up the land, cut down the trees, you have to put everything together, burn everything. And then you have to start planting the cane, planting the tobacco, planting the cotton. Then when these things reach to a certain stage, you have to go and you have to weed. You know what weeding? Yeah. These ladies, they don't have no belt. So what they used to do, they take a piece of cloth and they band their belly, band their waist, and they have to go between these produce on the plantation and they have to weed. When the time comes, they have to harvest. I mean, say if the men are not busy working construction work, they will help. And it's true, because when you look in places like down in St. Vincent, all of these Victorian homes, all of these Victorian homes that you see, the Hadleys and the Ponette and all of the Balcombs and all of these Sonny Childs that I'm talking about in St. Vincent, all of these guys living in these big Victorian homes. Who do you think built them? It's the slave that built them. So while they're working on these houses, the women, all of the burden burden, the weight of work on the plantation fall on these women. So it wasn't easy. I think when you look into the history of slavery, I want to believe that women suffer more than men. I know men suffer a lot in the sense that, they will castrate men, cut out their private parts. They will also, hang them. They will do all this, burn them alive and all of that. But, when they do that to you, I know you suffer, yes. But the suffering of our black women, it was a consistent thing in which the slave master was able to rape them. He was, if they disagree with what he is saying or what he is doing, he will just rip down their clothes, tie them up against a tree, and then he take his whip and he start whipping them. I believe that the abuse that black women experience, when we look today and we see what is going on in the black community, when you see black men physically abusing our black women, I don't agree with that. Abuse in relationship is a no-no. Nobody not supposed to put their hand on their woman, on their wife. But I believe that thing came down from slavery. Right. It is when the black man, he saw the European man for more than 400 years taking his black woman, sometimes it is his wife or his sister, taking them and beating them, ill-treating them. So when the black man, when slavery, when emancipation took place, the black man is out of slavery, he know that when the white master want to get the black woman in subjection, what he will do is to beat them. He's seen that for how much years? He saw that, his father saw that, everybody see what was going on. What do you think they're going to resort to? I'm not condemning, I'm not, supporting, physical abuse in relationship. But what I'm saying, the European have to take the blame. They are the first one who start to abuse physically and emotionally and sexually, abusing our women. And because of that, our men, they saw that happening in slavery, and when they were released, it's the same thing that they start doing. So, women have it real hard. They have it real hard during the time of slavery. The burden, physically as well as psychological, that came with childbearing were enormous for enslaved women. Enslaved women. When you become pregnant, back in that time, when you become pregnant, when a woman pregnant, sometimes she have, sickness. She's sick. Maybe the first 2-3 months, she have problems that she's sick. Not all women, but some women. And sometimes you're so sick. You're sick like a dog. You're sick like a dog. And you think you could stay home? You're vomiting, whatever you're doing, you can't stay home. You have to still go into the field and you have to go and do your job. When the time comes and you're probably, 6 months pregnant, and you have that big long belly in front of you, you tell yourself that you might stay home and relax because you're drawing closer for the child to be delivered. No, you still have to go out there. Still have to go out there and do your portion of work. Sometimes today when we talk about slavery, people think, it wasn't so bad, and it's because of the fact that we don't really take the time to check out the information that is out there on what was taking place during the time of slavery. And these things that I am saying here to you, this is not black people who put these things down. This is European men who put these things in writing. So why you fronting up your face down there because I'm talking these things? It's not me who put these things together. It's the man who did it. It is he who put these things together. So it is our job as black people to read these things and to see what our ancestors went through. So bearing children for women during the time of slavery, it was a terrible thing. The slave mother on a large plantation returned to the field soon after giving birth, leaving her child to be raised by others. So you tell yourself that you have your baby. Today, when a woman have a child, how long she stay home? How much time the government today give them what? Was it 6 months?
A year.
6?
A year and a half.
A what?
A year and a half.
A year and a half to stay home. How much time do you think, Master, when you have that child? How much time do you think, Master, give you to stay home? Not a long period of time. As soon as you deliver that child, sometimes you're not even healed yet. You have to go back. You have to go back on the plantation, because the longer you stay home is the more money Master is going to lose. And you don't want to lose any money, so you have to get your butt back out there. You know, whether you like it, yes or no, whether you're healthy, you know, you have to go back out there so that he can make his money. So it was terrible. They can't even raise their own children. There's no time for them to do bonding. When you have a child, you need to take time to bond with your child. They don't have no time for that. On a smaller farm, the slave mothering responsibility will simply added on top of our usual duty. So you have your children and you tell yourself, Master will be having some compassion, and you will say, well, you have 2, 3 children. Let me let her go home early so she could take care of her children. No, that's not going to happen. You have to, when the sun rise up, you have to get up and you have to find yourself on the plantation. When the sun sets, then you can leave and you can go home and you can take care of your children. For the love of their children, slave mothers often choose to stay in bondage while their male counterpart attempt escape. So what this is telling us is that because these women have their children, you have 2, 3 children, you know, you can't run away and leave them. Mothers love their children. That's the reason why you guys, you know, guys, you're not supposed to disrespect your mother. The children not supposed to disrespect their mother. Mothers love their children. It doesn't matter how bad they are. When we as fathers, we will say, listen, I'm out of time with you. I talked to you one time, I talked to you 2 times, you wouldn't listen, I leave you alone. Not so with a mother. Mothers, during the time of slavery, they're not going to run away and leave their children. But here we see the husband, the father, he can't take it anymore. And as soon as he got an opportunity and he can run away, get out of there, foot, get me out of here. He is going to run away. And he is going to leave the mother there to take care of these children. And, you know, it's no wonder why, you see, these people today, European people today, have so much bad things to say about the black family. And they will say, well, the black family, men is lacking in the home, which is true. And they will say, well, because we don't have fathers in the home, we have all of this problem that's going on in the black community. But who do you think started? Who do you think is their fault? It goes way back to slavery. When the black man had to run away and he had to leave his family, he can't take the abuse anymore. The black man sometimes, maybe he's not in compliance to what Master is doing. Maybe Master wants to molest his wife or rape his daughter, and he put up a bad face. He said, no, you can't do that. What do you think Master going to do? He's going to sell him, take him off of that plantation, and maybe sell him, you know, into another state. And therefore he's not going to even see his family again. His wife and children will not be seen by him again. So the husband, he, from time to time, he will escape and he will leave his wife. There wasn't even allowed to call a wife. There was a wife in it. The European didn't allow our ancestors to legally get married. What they used to do, what our ancestors used to do, in their own gathering, they will have some kind of ceremony, and they will get, you know, they jump over the broom. You ever see jumping over the broom? They jump over the broom. But to Master don't care if you jump over 1,000 broom. Yeah. He don't see you as husband and wife. When the time comes, if he wants to sell the husband, he jump over the broom and he's saying that this is my wife, this is my family. That is not going to stop him from selling the husband or selling the wife or selling whoever, breaking up the family. So from way back during the time of slavery, the Europeans have a history of trying to destroy the family of the black people. And it is true. I know it is hard truth, but I'm not afraid to speak the hard truth. Amen. The female slave was moreover faced with the prospect of being forced into sexual relationship for the purpose of production. So the husband run away, leave the wife with 2 or 3 children. He's not there anymore. And she keeping herself to herself. Because, she committed to her husband. Even though he's gone, she's still committed to him. But you know what Master said? Master said, listen, your husband gone, you have to produce more children. So what he will do, he's going to get some man, maybe from that same plantation, or maybe from another plantation. He's going to bring in a man so that he can breed. Can I say that? Yeah. He can breed that woman so that he can get more children on the plantation. Because the more children that is produced on the plantation is the more the investment of Massa is going to grow. So he's going to force her into a relationship. Whether or not she wants to go into a relationship, yes or no, he's going to force her into a relationship. The female slave was moreover faced with the prospect of being forced into a sexual relationship for the purpose of production. You have to produce. You have to make children. The more children you make, it is better for Master. Sometimes when a child is born and that boy grow up, a son especially, he grow up on the plantation. When he become, maybe in his teens, 16, 17, you know how much money he worth? More than $1,000, $1,000 for somebody that age. So it was an investment to the plantation owner, and perhaps more heartbreaking, painful, terrifying. She might witness to her daughters suffering the same fate. And what this is telling us here, I was trying to show you that from way back in Africa, the black women experienced raping. They rape them in Africa. They reach over in the New World, whether it's in the United States or down in the Caribbean. The raping continue. And this black woman, she have her daughter or daughters. You are a black woman in the time of slavery. You know what happened to you. You know that you were raped. God knows how many times some of these women were raped. You were raped during the time when you was growing up. And now you have your daughters. You know what you have to do? From the time they reach the age of maybe 10 or 12, you have to start to prepare them for when Master ready to call them. Master calling them into his house, or you meet them out in the field. The mother job was to prepare her daughter, so when he ready to have his way with them, when he ready to rape them, she have to coach them and tell them how they have to behave. They have to behave properly. They have to obey Master. They have to do what he say. Because if they don't do what the Master say, it means that that little child, he is going to sell her. So the mother wants her daughter to stay on that same plantation. So what she have to do, she go through the same thing too. She have to coach her little daughter. We think that these things are fairy tales. These are not fairy tales. Some of you out there have a little daughter, 12 years, 10 years, whatever, and you put yourself in that position. How are you going to feel? That mother have to coach her daughter and tell her how to conduct herself so she will please Master. So when Master finish have his way with her, he is going to keep her on the plantation. And if she don't please him, if she don't obey him, he is going to whip her and then he's going to sell her. So it was terrible, terrifying. She might be witness to her daughter suffering the same fate. I'm saying it to you guys today, our ancestors have it real hard, real terrible. The responsibility of childbearing and child care greatly restrict the life of an enslaved woman. This also explains why female slaves were less likely to run away than men. We talk about that. On the auction block. So they brought them over from Africa and they have them on the auction block, have them up for sale, where captive African women were stripped of their clothing, oiled down, and pork and prodded by potential buyers. So they put them on the action block. These things are what happened. These things are reality. These things are not fairy tale. These things are what the white man write down in his book. He put it down in his book. He did it, and then he came back and he put it down so that we can see it. Amen. They will put these women on the action block. They will strip them, take off their clothes, and then they will oil them down. And, the buyer coming to buy, he's going around and he's poking them, touching them wherever part of their body. Could you imagine you as a woman, they undress you. The most you can cover up, maybe you put your hand like that. How much places on your body can you cover up and protect? He's going around and he's poking you. And he's testing you because the white man wants to know that you can produce. As a woman, he wants to know that you are in good shape so you can produce children so that his investment can grow. So he's going to go around and he start to poke these women to see if they're in good shape. Throughout the period of slavery, white people believed black women, you have to listen to this, black women to be innately lustful beings, inborn, inbred, congenital, hereditary, means not acquired after birth. So what they say is that the black woman, she born with this sexual appetite, and she born with that appetite, and it's like she was born to become a sex slave. And what they're saying is that the black woman got no feelings, that she don't have any feelings, doesn't matter how much men or how much time you have intercourse with her, she feels nothing. She came here for that purpose, so therefore they can do it to her anytime. So it said, let me see where I left off. Because the ideal white woman was pure. You hear that? The black woman, she's supposed to be a sexual slave. She's like a beast. She don't have a feeling. But the white woman, she's pure. That's the thing about the white man. When slavery was abolished, one of the biggest fears of the white man is that the black man was going to go around and rape all of the white women. So what they start doing, they start lynching. They start lynching the black man, and before they lynch him, they cut off his balls, cut out his private part, and use it as a gift. Listen, when I read some of these things, I have to ask myself, I'm honestly asking myself, if you can do these things to another human being and still remain a human being. That is a question that I'm asking myself. When I see somebody who calls himself a human being doing this to a human being, and then you tell yourself that you're a human being. You can't be a human being and do that to another human being.
I'm a beast, man.
Yes, that is the job of a beast. Amen. You're right, brother. So they said, well, the white woman, she don't have that innate, as they use the word, nature towards sex. And she's not a sex beast. But the black woman, she's a sex beast, an object of sex. Because the ideal white woman was pure. From the initial African, European contact in North America, black women were deemed to be governed by their libidos and portrayed as Jezebel character. You see, the black woman, she have a strong sexual appetite, and they see her as a Jezebel. And brethren, this is what the history is telling us. we can't turn her back, turn your eyes away. They say, well, she's like a Jezebel character. The perception of the African woman as hypersexual make her both the object of white men and abhorrence. In other words, the white man, he hates the black woman and also his fantasy. So what this is telling us here, when the white man think about the black woman, he really hates her. But then, on the other hand, she becomes his fantasy. Because he see her as a sexual, beast. And he hates her, but then on the other hand, he wants to have sexual relationship with her. Within the bounds of slavery, master often felt it is their right to engage in sexual activity with the black woman. The master thinks, well, that is my right. I bought her, she belongs to me. So, it doesn't matter, even though she has a husband, he could call her anytime. And, if she's a single woman, he can request her. You have your daughter is in your house. Master could come sometime late at night, he knock on the door, and you have to open up the door, and you have to let your daughter out. But I'm telling you, if I was in the time of slavery, that was the last little child or wife that master was going to put his hand, I know it was going to be the last time he was going to do that. Amen. That is gross wickedness. Amen. Many female slaves were object of severe sexual exploitation after bearing the children of their white masters, masters' sons, or overseers. Slaves were prohibited from defending themselves against any type of abuse, including sexual at the hands of white men. So what they said is that if a white person a white man come to rape a black woman, the black woman can't defend herself. Could you imagine somebody want to rape you and you can't scratch his eyes, or you kick him in the balls, or you use some kind of an instrument against him? That is against the law, because the government gave the slave owner total prerogative over the slave. And back in that time, the only time you can take somebody to court if you rape a slave is if the master decide that, because you are his property, the master have to go and say, well, you trespass on my property, so therefore I'm taking you to court. So if you rape this black woman, unless the master decides to take that white man to court, it's going to go to nothing. Because he decided, well, it's my property, I don't suffer no loss. So it doesn't matter how many times these women were violated, they were raped, nothing is going to come out of it unless master decide to take action. And let me go a little before here. So, at the hands of white men, so what the writer is saying here, the master, he have his sons, and his sons have the prerogative to, anytime they want one of the young girls on the plantation, they can request to have them. You have the overseer. That is the reason why you have the mulatto race of people. That's why I told you this morning that all of the races of people on the face of the earth came out from black people. And this is not to boast. When you look at the mulatto race of people, they all came out from the black people, the black original man and woman. Because according to the white man definition, if you have one little drop of black blood in you, if you have one little drop of black blood in you, it doesn't matter how much you consider yourself to be white, but you have one little drop of black blood in you, you're a black person. Whether you're a man or woman, if you have one little drop of black blood in you, you're a black person. Look at what's going on in England right now. Meghan and Harry. Meghan have just a little drop of black blood. A little drop of black blood in her. And the royal family refused to acknowledge her. Why do you think she's leaving? You think it's because she wants to break up the family, she wants to get out of the family? It's because they never receive her. That's right. They didn't receive her. She had that little drop of black blood and they never receive her. So, that is what used to happen during the time of slavery, and we are still talking about strength in suffering of black women. All of that's going on with these black women, and they have to bear it. Amen. They're still there. Amen. They're not giving up. They're still taking care of their children. Amen. Still going on. Still singing their songs. Yeah. One of the things about the Europeans, they couldn't understand how come, black people was happy during slavery. After they suffered them, and they beat them, and they raped them, and they cut out their balls, they burn them sometimes, whatever they want to do with them, they still can, yes, if you run away, yes, they chop off your foot. You know, or if you run away, they have these big dogs. They have these dogs that train, just like the police have the dogs today, trained to track down people. When the dogs catch up with you, if you run away, as you said that, brother, they're not going to call the dog off. They're not going to restrain the dog. They let the dog bite you so that you can learn a lesson. Amen. So, where am I now? So I was saying that they will allow their sons and the overseers and all of these men have the right to just go and take, you know, these young girls or even married men. And some of these European men, they were into kinky stuff and they were even homosexual. So sometimes it's not just the young girls they will abuse. They will take the young boys and they will abuse them, you know. And it said slaves were prohibited from defending themselves against any type of abuse, including sexual, at the hands of white men. If a slave attempt to defend herself, talking about the woman, he coming after you and you want to defend yourself, she was often subject to further beatings by the master or even by the mistress. So the mistress, the master, even though he don't beat you, the mistress is going to beat you because she take it as an offense if you turn your back on her husband. He will probably give you a whipping, and if you don't get a whipping from him, she get the news that you refuse her husband. She is going to make it, put it into operation that you also get a whipping for refusing her husband. Black females, some of them children, were forced into sexual relationship for their white owners, pleasures, and profit. So what was happening is that these white European men, what they will do, get these young children, you know, maybe 12, 13, 14, whatever, and they will force them into sexual relationship. And they will stand around so that they can get their jollies from watching what was going on. And also, they want to get reproduction. They want the plantation or the amount of slave that they have, they want to get it to increase. So as soon as you reach to a certain age where he thinks, because it was master who making the decision when you can bring forth a child. Sometimes some of these girls, by the time they're 15, they already produce a child. Some children, some girls, by the time they reach in their early 20s, they already have 5, 6 children already. Because almost every year you gotta bring forth, you gotta put out one for master. The more you put out is the more his investment is gonna go up. Alright. So that he was doing that with his prophet, attempting to keep the slave population growing by his own doing, and not by importing more slaves from Africa. So what is happening here during that time? They stopped the importation of slaves from Africa because the Europeans, they came up with this idea that it is cheaper for them to breed slaves in Africa than going over in Africa and bringing the slave over. Because most of the time they go over and they probably got maybe 500 slaves on a ship. And sometimes by the time they reach over in North America here, or wherever they're dropping them off, it might be half. Because, through sicknesses and disease, some of these slaves, they're going to die. And some of them are going to throw themselves overboard and all of these kind of things. So when you take all of that into consideration, they came up with the idea, let us breed our own slaves here. So what they're doing, all of these women on the plantation, they're using them to produce. And what the history tells us is that these women, after they stopped the importation of slaves from Africa, they produce more slaves in the United States and in places like the Caribbean, Cuba, Haiti, down into South America, in Mexico, especially Mexico and Brazil. Brazil, I think, had the most slaves and they breeding these women, women on the plantation so that they can produce more slaves so that the master, his portfolio can increase. All right, so he's talking about even Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, is believed to have fathered 6 mixed race children. 4 survived to adulthood, with one of his female slaves, Sally Hemings, a woman 3/4 white. She was 3/4 white. She got that one drop of black blood in her, and they said, no, you 3/4 white. And a half-sister to his late wife, who served as the widow's concubine for more than 2 decades. So what is happening here? Let me talk a little bit about this. Thomas Jefferson. He was the third president of the United States. I was going to do a 5 minutes on him. He's the third president of the United States. And he's the man that in the Constitution, he said that all men are created equal. Thomas Jefferson, when he said that he had 600 slaves, I think he might have about 20-something thousand acres of land. And he had 600 slaves. And what he said also is that black people don't have any feelings. He said black people don't have any feelings. They don't feel emotion. They don't feel pain. And also what he said is that black people smells. And the same man, this is the same man I just read about. He said black people smells. And he had 6 children with Sally Hemings, which was a black woman. When the night come, he already said that they smell, but he creeped into Sally Hemings' tent or wherever she lives, and he's going to have sex with her. He have sex with this smelly black woman for more than 20-something years. Can you imagine? For the most part, masters made young a single slave the object of their sexual pursuit. However, they did on occasion rape married women. The inability of the slave husband to protect his wife from such violation point to another fundamental aspect of the relationship between enslaved men and women. So what they're saying here, when master decide that he's going to call for your wife, you have a wife, she's looking real sexy, even though she have 2-3 children. But master one day watching her and say, oh, you're looking good, When the night come, he called for your wife. And you have to let her go. When you can't do nothing, you're helpless. That is what racism is all about. Racism is not when white people say they hate black people, or black people say they hate white people, or a white man say, well, I don't want you to marry to my daughter, or I say I don't want a white man to marry to my daughter. That is not racism. That is discrimination. Racism is when you can put laws in operation. When you can put it in law, and you can say, well, this group of people not supposed to get an education. They're not supposed to go to school. This group of people not supposed to ride at the front of the bus. Back in that time when they have this problem about riding at the front of the bus, the black people in the United States, they have to come to the front of the bus where the driver is, and they pay their fare, and then they have to go back out, and they have to pass at the back door. And sometimes when they go back out and pass at the back door, what is going to happen? The driver take off and leave them and gone. So racism is when you can put laws into operation. For instance, you're making a law that black people can't get a loan. You can't get a loan. Bank not going to give you a loan. Or they put it into law, when I talk about going to school, when you're walking on the sidewalks, you're walking on the sidewalk and you see a European person coming down the street. What do you think you have to do? You have to step aside. You step aside and you come off on the sidewalk and you take off your hat and you tip your hat to them so that they can pass. That is what racism is all about. It's not this foolishness that they keep telling us about white people saying they hate black people. people and they're making a big deal as if, well, that is what racism is all about. Is when you can stop me from getting a job.
Yeah.
You can stop me from living in a community. I have all of the money. I have my $500,000 to buy my house. But I can't go in that community to get a house because white people is in that community and it's going to run down the community. So therefore, you're going to keep me out. The real estate people, they have it already planned. When somebody of color, some black folks become, and they know that they're not supposed to get a house in this community, they know that they're supposed to guide them over into where they're supposed to be. That is what racism is all about. Amen. As I bring it to a close, for black men, where am I now? So I was talking about what they were doing. That because of the fact that Master had the right to take away the man's wife from him, the relationship is damaged. In other words, the respect. The respect that the black woman is supposed to have for her husband. Can you imagine? Somebody want to put their hand on my wife and I stand up right there and I just, I can't do nothing. You don't try that. Don't try that. One guy in Trinidad tried that and he suffered from it. He go and put your hand on my wife and I tell you, I really give it to him. So what was happening here is that these slave masters, they were able to take away the black man's wife. And because the black man couldn't do anything to protect her, she lose respect for him because he couldn't stand up for her. So therefore she lost respect for him. Slave husband was sold, leaving his wife to raise their children alone. They will, break up the family, send away the husband, leave the responsibility of all of the children on the slave mother. Back in those days, she can't get welfare. She can't get any help. It is whatever pickings, is whatever the slave master allow her to take from. Maybe she working in the kitchen and she cooking in the kitchen and she able to get some leftovers to take for her children, her family. Treatment of slave was harsh. I'm coming to an end. And inhumane during work and outside of it. Slaves suffer physical abuse since the government allow it. That is what I'm saying. That is what racism is all about. The government allow masters to beat their slaves. And even though when they're beating them, if somebody died in the process of their beating them, it wasn't a crime. Because the government already have it in law. Dehumanizing brutality of having to bear witness to their spouses being sold at action and daughters raped. Let me talk about this and then probably I can close it here. Little Joey, I talk about little Joey. Little Joey, he's the son of a cook who cooking. This slave woman, she's the cook for Massa, cooking for the white man. And she had a son, his name is Joey. What happened here is that little Joey, son of the cook, was sold to pay his owner's bad debt. So this woman, she cooking for Massa, cooking Massa food, cooking, making his breakfast, making his dinner, making his lunch, make sure that his juice is there for him to drink. And she sold him his wine, whatever he needs, she's there, being a good slave. And she had a little son named Joey. Massa goes somewhere and he was gambling. And he lost. So to make up his losses, you know what Massa gonna do? Massa decided he's gonna sell little Joey. And it tells us to pay his debt. Joey's mother was ordered to dress him in his best Sunday clothes and send him to the big house. Massa want to pay his debt. So what he do? He gonna sell little Joey, the son of the cook, and he ordered her to dress him up in his best Sunday suit and send him up to the big house because somebody coming in to buy him. Where he was sold like a hog. He sold him just like an animal. This is the same woman who was cooking for him and being so nice to him. She had a little son. Maybe she probably used to carry him in the house as she do her work. And he get into financial debt. What he did, he sold him He told her, dress him up in his best Sunday suit and bring him up to the big house. Anytime they tell you, come to the big house, it's trouble, You walking out in the field, and master tell you to come to the big house. You're a young teenager. He walking out in the field and master call you up in the big house. It means that they're going to sell you. They're going to sell you out on another plantation. You out in the field as a young woman, teenager, and master call you to the big house. Somebody come and say, master says to come to the big house. You know something bad is going to happen. He's going to rape you. He's going to abuse you. So they call Joey, mother sent Joey up to the big house, and where he was so like a hug. She pleaded passionately that her boy should not be taken from her. She's his cook. And she pleaded with him, master, I beg you, I'm going to be a better cook. I'm going to cook you more nice food. Please don't sell my Joey. But master quieted her by telling her that he was going to town with the wagon. He going to town and would be back in the morning. Morning came, but little Joey did not return to his mother. Morning after morning passed, and the mother went down to the grave without even seeing her child again. You think this is an isolated case? This happened all over throughout the time of slavery. Where the master, he probably go and gamble, or he wanted to give one of his friends a gift, and you have a young son, a young daughter. He decided he's going to give your son or your daughter as a gift to somebody who probably living in the next state. And you're not going to even see your son or your daughter again. So when we talk about, the suffering of black women, we have to realize that it goes back from a long way. And all of these things are documented. And as I was trying to encourage you guys at the beginning, we have to try to find out about our history. And when we know our history, nobody won't be able to fool us. Nobody won't be able to tell us that we were in Africa swinging from trees. And they come and they show us a favor by bringing us over here in the New World. In Africa, our ancestors, some of them were kings and princes. Some of them, they were, leaders in different parts of Africa. Africa had empires. It was one Africa. Africa was one continent. It's the European white man who go in and slice up Africa in 1884. Chop it up in different pieces. And the thing is, when he cutting up Africa in 1884, he held a conference, called all of these European countries together who was involved in the slave trade. They were fighting over Africa. And I think it was King Leopold called them together and said, well, we don't need to fight. Let us have a conference. Bring all of them together. And without even inviting anybody from Africa. So behind the Africans' back, they don't know nothing about what's going on. The Europeans decided they're going to slice this piece up, slice that up, give that to Portugal, give this piece here to France, give this piece here to Great Britain, and so on. And they chop up Africa into pieces. But before that, it was just one whole continent that was existing at the time. May the Lord bless us. Amen. I'm going to ask the musicians to come back. Thank you for listening to me. Praise the Lord. Amen. The Lord bless us.